Should you get a Dutch oven? These things are used as anything from a deep fryer, boiler, searing, baking, you name it. As a health-conscious beginner home cook, mostly focused on veggies, simple carbs, and lean proteins, my own experience with my Dutch oven has leaned me more towards letting it sit and gather dust then bother to bring it out and use it in most cases. And in this video, I'll give you some perspective on whether this deserves a place in your kitchen and dollars out of your wallet. So first of all, what is a Dutch oven? It's kind of a deep dish skillet made of cast iron, and it retains a lot of heat, very similar to most other cast iron products. That is its main selling point, which makes it really versatile. You can sear a steak, it can keep oil hot for French fries, and in general, everyday cooking. And this specific model that I have, just for reference, is a Tramontina Dutch oven, and it has the capacity to hold about 7 quarts of liquid, and portion wise can cook about a 3 to 4 pound of meat with a proportional amount of potatoes and veggies. This thing weighs about 13 pounds, very similar to other cast iron, and it's a item that I bought when I was first starting to learn how to cook, reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Chef and using this for my first recipe in that book, the osso buco, aka basically tomato braised lamb. So here are 5 key considerations that I would think about before you go ahead and purchase one of these bad boys. First of all, its versatility. If you're going to use it for one specific application, like baking bread, it might actually be a good idea to get one of these because it can also be a dual purpose for many other recipes, such as making soups, stews, or even frying if you're into that. Instead of buying something specifically for baking bread, for example, you can go ahead and purchase this item and then use it for many other applications. The second is durability. Build quality, if it's really important to you and you're worth paying the extra price, I would suggest looking at other reviews and seeing if those match up better to your needs. But for me, the Tramontina, it's a mid-tier item, $100, great item just to start off your cooking journey. Now, onto what I think is the biggest con, at least for me, is the practical aspect of using this every day, every single week. To be honest, when it comes to the types of foods that I like to cook the most, it's very rare that a Dutch oven is actually necessary in order to achieve the best results. Like when it comes to the lean proteins that I enjoy making, such as your chicken thighs, chicken breasts, etc., there's other items that are not as cumbersome to lug around and take up as much space and aren't as much of a pain to clean. This thing, if you want to try to fit in your dishwasher, you can, but it takes up like the entire bottom rack and it's really annoying to get in and out because of its weight and its weight distribution. So that's something that's really important to consider because you might be excited to use it the first few times, but then you start to realize it's just annoying. And this sounds really childish, but to be honest, when you're trying to make healthy habits that are already difficult on their own, you don't need your cooking tools to get in the way of that and create additional friction to you achieving your goals. Secondly, as I said, when I first bought this, I was very much a beginner. And one big problem that home cooks face is that recipes online differ wildly in terms of how much it directly applies to your specific situations. Different ovens heat at different rates. For example, a recipe online might say you only need to use 2 hours in this Dutch oven, but you actually need to roast something for like 3.5. So you roast it for 2 hours, you take it out and it's completely underdone, and you put it in for, and you have like no idea how much longer to put it in for because you can't see into the pot, so you can't tell whether it's done or not. You just have to trust the timer, and you take it out again in another hour or two and it's just completely overdone. And that's where this is honestly not as beginner friendly of an appliance as you'd think. And yes, maybe I'm just a terrible cook even for a beginner, but when I was starting out, I would constantly wreck recipes and destroy great pieces of meat because the recipes that I was following did not work for my specific situations for whatever reason. So this is one of those items where you really have to invest time into it to learn how it fits with your specific situation. And that's something that some people just can't be bothered with, including me. So the biggest benefit though, like to that point, it's heavy because it can cook a lot of food. So you can put like half a week's worth of meals in this pot. If you just throw a bunch of potatoes, a bunch of veggies, and a huge chunk of meat, 3 to 4 pounds, you can get yourself 4 or 5 meals for even a large eater like myself in a few hours, and you can basically set and forget it if you are practiced with that amount of weight of meat with this tool. When it comes to popular alternatives on the price, there There is the famous Le Creuset Dutch oven, which costs about $100 more than this. And then there's also the Cuisinart, which costs like 10 or 20 bucks less. There are like a million other videos that cover those alternatives, so I'm not gonna go into really huge detail now. Just know that there's both cheaper and more expensive alternatives to the specific model I have. Today, I just wanted to focus on the why behind this kind of purchase. So, who is the ideal user for a Dutch oven? Well, the most ideal user is someone who likes the idea of meal prepping with recipes that work really well in a Dutch oven, and they're willing to invest that time to learn how to use it and potentially mess up a couple recipes along the way. And people who don't mind hand washing. So for example, I've gotten really used to using a dishwasher for everything. And to be honest, hand washing is a big pain in the ass. So I just don't really want to do it, and that's good enough reason for me to not use this most of the time. If you're like more of an adult than I am and you don't mind that, think really carefully. Do you really want to hand wash this thing 13 pounds, lugging it in and out, week in, week out? If not, and you're willing to accept that you're just kind of lazy like me, and you'd rather focus your willpower on other things, don't buy this. If you're a baker, if you're someone who bakes a lot of bread, perfect tool. Not only can it bake your bread, but it can also do all these other things that I talked about in the video. And that's where like a minimalist cook, for example, or someone that is more casual, who doesn't need to make a ton of food, smaller appetite, you probably just won't need this as much. It takes up a ton of space in your kitchen, especially if you live in a smaller space like an apartment. And so you really have to be careful when you're bringing in a big piece of potentially clutter into your space. My personal experience, my personal opinion, this was not worth it. It was great for me to test out a few recipes to start with, but overall, I have messed up about as many recipes as I have completed successfully with this item. So I just think it's just not for me. It's just not for my style. Yes, it's a skill issue, but it just doesn't work out for me. So it's a no for me. But others, you might think differently. You might hear all the things I complain about and be like, wow, what a baby, so childish. You're like not even an adult at all. You'd be right, but that means it's just for you instead of for me. So when you're out there shopping for a Dutch oven, just keep in mind, like, how much do you actually care about the build quality? How often are you going to use it? If it's something you foresee yourself using very often because you like doing lots of braises, you like doing like slow cooked lamb or like oven braised beef chuck roast, those types of meals, if that's kind of your thing, if that's what makes you feel good, that's like the kind of cuisine you'd like, then you really want to consider buying one of these. But if not, hey, listen, an Instant Pot, which I'm going to talk about in my next video, works for many different day-to-day cases, and in my opinion is a lot easier to use. So if you yourself have experience using a Dutch oven, please drop those experiences and opinions in the comments below. My next video, as I mentioned, is going to be a review of the Instant Pot that I use twice a week at the bare minimum. So I'll be talking about that and why I find it a much more applicable tool for myself and for people like me than the Dutch oven. Thanks for watching.